Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by Hollis, Wright & Couch, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts. The attorneys with Josh Wright from the Hollis, Wright & Couch Law Firm and host David Lamb.
Hello and welcome into The Attorneys. I'm David Lamb. Thanks so much for being with us this evening. For the next half hour, the goal of this show is to answer your legal questions and concerns, and there are plenty of ways for you to get in touch with us. You'll see throughout the program ways you can call, text, or email us. Our subject matter tonight is sensitive, so right here at the front, we want to warn you of that. The topic is rape cases in Alabama, so just make sure that those who are viewing with you understand and are the folks that you want them watching this sort of type of frank discussion that we may have here. So just a warning there right at the outset. Joined by Josh Wright of the firm Hollis, Wright & Couch. Good to see you, sir.
You too. Hope you had a good week.
And indeed, I did. We've covered many different, sometimes controversial, sensitive subjects. None quite as sensitive, I don't think, as this. Why did you want to do a show on rape cases here in the state?
You know, we have not shied away from thought-provoking and sensitive topics.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good example of it. At the end of the day, the reason that we started the show in the first place was to provide a service to the public, those that are in your viewing area. And if this show hits even one person, it is worth the time and the effort that's put into it. It is a sensitive topic, but we're very lucky tonight to be joined by Meg McGlamory from the Crisis Center. We're also going to have another expert, a legal expert, that'll come on a little bit later in the show. Meg's with the Crisis Center, and one of the nice things that I've learned just getting to know Meg for the short time that I have is this is a topic that is important. There are 1,400, 1,500 rapes in Alabama a year, so it's significant and impacts a lot of people in our state. But it's something not to shy away from and be afraid to talk about. And that's one of the nice things about bringing Meg on, to be able to talk about this topic, because it is sensitive, it is thought-provoking, but the hope is, I guess, that we provide some information that maybe helps somebody in the process of going through this terrible issue.
Absolutely. We really appreciate y'all bringing light to this subject matter.
We're glad to have you on, for sure.
Thank you.
From an overview and kind of a starting point, let's talk first of all about the Crisis Center and what you all do and kind of what you bring and how you're able to help folks.
Well, at the Crisis Center, we help people in crisis, whether that may be someone who feels suicidal or depressed and wants to talk to somebody. So we have different programs to help them wherever they are in their time of need. Specifically with rape response and with survivors of sexual violence, we have two programs. One focused on the healing aspect from sexual violence, where they can receive free counseling after sexual assault has taken place. We also have the SANE facility, which is the Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner facility. And that is a place where a survivor can come and have that forensic evidence collected after a sexual assault has taken place.
You use the term, we like definitions here so that we're kind of operating from the same understanding, but exactly what has to take place for it to be considered a sexual assault in this state?
In this state, any unwanted touch, physical touch that is sexual in nature would be considered against the law. And I know that Mara Russell will be here to talk more about the legal aspects of that, but we want survivors to know if anything that was done without consent has happened, that we're here to support them and help them.
Now, if people want to get educated and they've been through something in their lifetime, can they simply call the Crisis Center and talk with a counselor?
Absolutely.
Tell them how to do that. 24
hours a day, they can call the Rape Response Hotline at 323-7273. There's also a national hotline that they can call. It's through RAIN, which is the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network, and that number is 1-800-656-HOPE.
And I know we're going to have that on the screen throughout the show today, and that's great. When somebody calls that, who can they expect to talk with? What type of person will they be talking with, and how does that process work?
That's going to be a trained person that works with survivors of sexual violence. It can be a man, it can be a woman. What we know is that both men and women are affected by this crime, and both men and women want this violence to end. So we make sure they're trained counselors that are on that line.
That's great.
What do you all advise the proper steps and procedures to follow Not only if someone's had the unfortunate event of this happening to them, or if a family member or you or someone kind of tells you, what's happened. Well, what should happen if someone's been a victim of a sexual assault? Kind of walk us through those steps.
Okay. The first thing we want that survivor to know is that that's not their fault. They did not deserve it. So if you're a friend or family member that is hearing this from somebody for the first time, it's important for them to hear those words.
Right.
Thank you for sharing this with me. Let's get the help that you really deserve. The next step we would really encourage survivors to do is to call us, to call one of those hotline numbers. If they're not sure what their local rape crisis center is, where it is, what the number is, they can call that national number. And what that counselor is going to do is walk them through what options they have. We want them to preserve any evidence that they have. Their body is the scene of the crime. So it's very difficult to tell a survivor, don't eat anything, drink anything, bathe, brush your teeth, especially after what they've been through, but we strongly encourage it if they want to have that forensic evidence collected. We want to make sure they're medically okay. That's the main thing. So they can come to our SANE facility, bypass the hospital, and be in a safe place where they can get the help they deserve. They do not have to file a police report if they're not ready for that step. They can come forward, get that help, and when they feel ready to file that police report, then they can do so, and we'll have their evidence there at the crisis center.
So the crisis center really facilitates kind of the process from start to finish, if you will.
Absolutely.
Forensic evidence is critical in these cases, is it not?
Yes.
And I know we'll talk more about that with Mara probably, but with the onset of more DNA evidence and those types of things, it sounds to me like that's become a more critical component of the things that you guys are trying to help collect.
Yes, absolutely, especially if you want to move forward with a case and prosecute that, now that we have shows that are wonderful shows like Law & Order SVU, we see those cases, and that physical evidence that they have really can help a case a great deal.
You bring up shows like that, and I was just thinking, oftentimes on those shows, a rape victim, it's a mugging or someone running in the park, it's a stranger. How accurate is that of those who are committing the rape?
Not accurate at all, actually. In Alabama in 2011, every year they do a Crime in Alabama report. In 2011, only 2% were strangers. 55% of the time it's someone you know, trust, you're related to, which can be a very scary thing, and we don't want to scare your viewers, but that's the reality of the crime. 43% of the time the relationship was unknown, and most of the time that's due to date rape drugs, or they do not want to report who their perpetrator is.
Right.
Yeah, because it's a very scary thing. They feel like they're going to be blamed. They feel like, for some reason someone's going to find fault with them.
Meg, what are some things that people can do to protect themselves from these types of crimes? Because it sounds like they are prevalent in Alabama.
Yes.
But there are probably some precautionary measures that can be taken to help protect folks.
It's a great question, and I really wish that all perpetrators had green noses so we could just pick them out and then we could really prevent this crime from happening. So the truth is, the perpetrator is the one who's responsible, and he or she is the only person who can prevent this from happening. But there are ways for us to be safe, to try to be safe. Since most of the time it's someone we know and trust, that's a little bit more difficult. We tell people right off the bat to trust your instincts. That's the most important thing. We've all been in the car sometime, sitting there, and you think, oh, I need to lock my doors. Even if no one's around, you just have that thought in your head, and we lock our doors and we don't think anything of it. Same thing when it comes to this. If you feel uncomfortable with somebody, it's okay to get out of that situation. If you're going on a date for the first time or even going to a party, maybe it's okay to have someone with you. Talk to someone about that. There are great apps now that you can download on your phone. There's one called Circle of Six, and you can pick 6 of your friends that you feel safe with, and just by touching that app 2 times, you can get the help you need by reaching out to those 6 people you feel safe with. You have options where it can be call me, I'm in trouble right now, come get me, and I'll show a map of where you're at. So there are advances to really help people be safe if they feel like they're in trouble. It's important to know that we can't be psychic about this. We don't know when this is going to happen, but to trust yourself as much as possible.
What do you think? Oftentimes, whenever you hear of either you know a deadly tragedy, and you kind of hear the news of that, the behavior, and there's a decision at some point that kind of leaves you after the fact going, you know, why would they ever do that? Why would they go off to there? Why would they, you know, there are decisions that are critical that just sometimes prove tragic. Is that kind of what you're speaking to? That you know, when you have the feeling, being strong enough, being confident, walking away, don't put yourself in a risky situation, and just kind of sort of be on guard, I guess you could say.
Yes and no. And yes, in the fact that I don't want to live my life always having to look around. And so that is the hard part.
Right.
You know, I'd hate to walk around thinking that this is going to happen at any moment. That's really scary. Right. So what we really encourage is that to be aware. To be aware of what's going on. We know that 2% of the time it is a stranger, and so that does happen. That's more rare, but it does happen. But the main thing is, when somebody is victimized, they are not thinking in their normal mindset. Right. They're in trauma. And whatever they do to survive is the right thing to do. Yeah. So we hear a lot of times from our survivors that people in their family or maybe even law enforcement ask questions that they don't mean harmful, but things like, why didn't you cry out? Why didn't you scream? Why didn't you fight back? 90% of the time, survivors freeze. That's what they do. Their brain takes over, and that's how they survive that. They get through it and survive. 10%, you hear the fight and flight. So there are some people who are able to yell out, some people who are able to say no, some people who are able to fight. But at the same time, if that's going to put your life in more danger, we don't want that to happen. We want you to get through this.
Have you guys found that drugs and alcohol contribute to these circumstances on both sides, from the victim side and also from the perpetrator side?
It's a great subject matter because we find that perpetrators use alcohol as a way to make people vulnerable. So even in going out, they may buy drinks for somebody and buy several drinks for somebody. I remember, and this is a terrible thing, but I remember being in college and seeing on the wall at a certain place it said, if she says no, give her another drink. And so that's really the philosophy of many perpetrators. Date rape drugs are also used in alcohol, soda, tea, and even food now. So perpetrators can even easily drug drinks or food to hurt somebody.
And a lot of times, from what I understand, tasteless, where somebody can't even taste it. So another thing to be very careful of, if you're a young woman or a young man in an environment where somebody's trying to provide you drinks or something, be careful.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Meg, we appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
And so much to cover here, so much ground to cover, but want to give you the opportunity just to kind of talk to our viewers. Any information you want to pass along, just key information that can maybe help somebody that's watching.
I want people to know, we want people to know that if this has happened to you, that you can heal from this. It doesn't define who you are. It can really be a part of your life, and that the Crisis Center is a safe place for you. If you call us and we're not the right place, we're going to make sure that you get to the right place so you can get through this. You did not deserve for this to happen, and there's hope.
Tell them again, too, Meg, how to get in touch with you guys.
Our phone number is 323-7273, which spells out rape, so it's easy to remember. Or you can call the national hotline at 1-800-656-HOPE.
Meg McGlammer is with the Crisis Center. We appreciate you being with us. Really do some great information. As we head to break, after this break, going to be joined with the representative from Jefferson County's District Attorney's Office. As we head to break, just a reminder, you can get your questions to us. Call, text, email. Also find the firm on Facebook. Just search the firm Hollis, Wright & Couch, and also on Twitter. That's Hollis_Wright. Stay tuned. More of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch, and thanks for watching The Attorneys on Alabama's 13. Now, we hope you, a friend, or a loved one never need legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple. provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free, so if you have questions specific to this show or related to other civil legal matters, call, email, or text us to talk with one of our lawyers. You can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter to learn about important legal news that could affect you or your family. Or simply contact us by going to alabamas13.com and click on the Attorneys link. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and for watching The Attorneys right here on Alabama's 13.
Welcome back into The Attorneys. If you are just joining us, just a word of warning, our topic tonight is the sensitive topic of rape cases in the state of Alabama, so the subject matter may not be appropriate for everyone in your family, so just be aware that is what we're talking about tonight, just kind of to let you know. And earlier, Josh, we were joined by Meg McGlamory of the Crisis Center, another guest that's really going to help us and understand this topic. Yeah,
we're changing issues here from the Crisis Center over to the prosecution of these types of crimes. And Mayor Russell, who's with the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office, is nice enough to join us. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, happy to be here.
And I think one of the transitions here is to go from what we talked about with Meg, some of the concepts and ideas of how to protect yourself and what to do if you've been involved in this, to what the law says and how the law protects citizens and individuals that have been through this. So welcome aboard. We're glad to have you here. And I think maybe the easiest way to start this is kind of defining what qualifies as rape or sexual assault under Alabama law.
Sure. Title 13 is the Alabama Criminal Code, and it has a number of described sexual assaults in Title 13, ranging from rape first degree, rape second degree, sexual misconduct, sexual torture, and obviously sex crimes toward children. So there are a number of crimes in that particular part of the criminal code, specifically rape in the first degree. It is defined in the code as when a person, and it could be he or she, engages in sexual intercourse with someone of the opposite sex with forcible compulsion. Now, the term forcible compulsion, I think the obvious definition, and as it's defined in the code, is physical force that overcomes any type of exerted
defense?
Yes.
Resistance of type, yeah.
Right, any type of physical resistance given by the victim, of course. It also is defined as a threat by the assailant, whether that threat is express or implied, and that threat puts the victim in fear of serious physical injury or death to herself or another person. So it could be physical force, but it could also be just a threat.
And Mayor, talk about this. This is something you prosecute on a daily basis with the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office, do you not?
Yes, I do.
And it's something you probably see a lot of?
We do. Again, rape is underreported, and a lot of victims do report their rapes, and they do go to the same clinic. And for various reasons, personal reasons, they decide not to prosecute the case. But there are a number of cases that are brought to our office, and we certainly do prosecute them if the elements are there.
And David, I'm sorry just to keep jumping in, but I have a question because I think the viewers would want to know. Does the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office take over in cases if somebody that is a victim does not want to prosecute, or does the individual that has been involved in this, do they have the ability not to prosecute if they desire not to? And I know that's a sensitive topic because it's difficult for the district attorney, and it's a tough issue, but one that I think folks would like to know kind of how that works in the process.
Well, once the warrant is signed against the assailant, it does become the state of Alabama versus that defendant's. Okay, so it is the crime was perpetrated against the peace and dignity of the state of Alabama, and that's the way the indictment is written. However, the victim is listed in the indictment. That is the victim in the case. Not only is she a victim, she's going to be a witness in our trial.
If she doesn't want to swear out a warrant, does she have the right not to prosecute in that respect?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
So the victim has control at the beginning of the issue.
Absolutely.
And once again, I guess another reason to go talk with Meg at the Crisis Center and folks at the Crisis Center to try and gather information about what your rights are and what you can and cannot do through the process.
Absolutely. And as Meg said, they can come to the same clinic and they can be examined. A rape kit can be done. It's preserved there. So if the victim decides later that she does want to prosecute, we have that evidence there. Additionally, a victim can make a police report as well. That doesn't require the victim to prosecute at that point. Now, in terms of trial, when we take the case to trial, it may be questioned if the victim delays in her reporting by the defense. They may say, why did it take you so long to make a police report? Right. So again, I want victims to know they can make a police report and have it on record at that point, but that still doesn't require them to go forward in prosecution at that point. So
you recommend that, though? I saw one of our factoids was getting in touch with the police and putting them on notice immediately, probably in consultation with the Crisis Center, but putting them on notice right away. You recommend that as a first step, even if you decide later not to prosecute?
Yes, in terms of a criminal case, yes, I do. Okay.
That's good information.
Good stuff. Time for our final break of the evening. Stay with us. More of the attorneys coming up as we head to break. Reminders of how you can get in touch with the firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch. Call, text, email. Find them on Facebook. Just search the term Hollis, Wright & Couch, or on Twitter, Hollis_Wright. Stay tuned. The final segment of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Steve Couch with the law firm Hollis, Wright & Couch. When you serve on a jury, you might expect to have all the evidence presented to you during a case. But there's some forms of evidence that are not allowed in court. In tonight's Legal 411, we're answering the question, why can't jurors see police incident reports? Most jurors would like to see crash reports during a trial, especially since these documents almost always show the investigating officer's opinion on who was at fault for the crash. Unfortunately, Alabama law prohibits the introduction of such reports into evidence. Alabama law also states that no such accident report shall be used as evidence in any trial, civil or criminal, arising out of an accident. According to the lawmakers who wrote and approved this rule, the reason accident reports cannot be admitted as evidence is that a jury might place too much weight on an official document, such as a police report. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule, of course, but most courts generally won't allow this evidence to be shown to a jury. Despite this rule, police officers who investigate crashes are still allowed to testify. They can tell a jury what they saw at the scene of the crash, including road conditions, the positions of the automobiles. An officer can also inform a jury of most every statement that the people who were involved in the crash may have said to that officer during his or her investigation. The accident report can even be used to refresh a police officer's memory on the crash, but the actual document, the report, that cannot come into evidence. An officer's opinion of who is at fault is also excluded by Alabama law. That's because the jury is charged with deciding fault based on all the facts presented during the case. Please remember your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis, Wright & Couch want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question that you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks again for watching The Attorneys here on Alabama's 13.
Welcome back into The Attorneys, our final segment dealing with the sensitive topic of rape cases in Alabama. And Josh, just a couple of minutes.
Statute of limitation generally defined as the time within which somebody can bring a case in a rape circumstance. When can someone bring a case?
There is no statute of limitations in rape in the first degree, so the DA's office can prosecute that case at any point in time. Obviously, there has to be probable cause, and the victim needs to be willing to go forward at that time. And
is there an age of consent? I've heard of age of consent in Alabama. How does that work?
In Alabama, a person cannot consent, period, if they're under 16 years old. Additionally, if they are physically helpless, either unconscious or they're mentally incapacitated, intoxicated, they can't consent as well.
Are there some specific rules for kids that are in high school that are within a certain age of each other? Anything that applies that you're aware of under the law?
Well, there is the rape in the second degree charge, and that would involve someone who's over 16 years old having sexual intercourse with someone who is between 12 and 16.
Got it. Okay.
All right. Time just enough for a couple of final comments. First of all, Mayor, from you.
I just would like viewers to know that our office works very closely in conjunction with the SANE Clinic. Obviously, their nurses would be witnesses in our case that we bring to trial. They would testify. And in conjunction with the SANE Clinic and the counselors there, we want to work very closely with the victims to bring them through this process, because we realize it is a very difficult process.
If this topic has helped one person, it's been so well worth it. There's just no doubt about that. We brought Meg on earlier with the Crisis Center. If people have concerns, issues, if they've been through this, call the Crisis Center. That's the key.
That is a fantastic note to end the program on. We appreciate you being with us tonight. We'll be back next week as we wrap this up. Ways you can get in touch with the firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch. Thanks so much to all of our guests, and thanks to you as well. We'll look for you next week right here on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch.